The village slept under a blanket of stars as Kwame knelt before his father. The old man's feet told stories his mouth never would. Cracked heels from decades of walking unyielding earth. Toenails thickened like tree bark from years of labor. The kerosene lamp cast long shadows that danced across the mud walls of their compound, making the wrinkles on Baba's face look like rivers on a map of suffering. "Baba, I must go," Kwame whispered, his voice barely louder than the chirping crickets. The bitter kola nut he'd been chewing stuck in his throat like a lump of unspoken fears. His father exhaled smoke that curled like spirits escaping a corpse. The orange glow of his rolled tobacco illuminated the deep grooves around his mouth. "You think because you speak some English book language Europe will open its golden gates?" The old man's laugh was dry as Harmattan wind. "They will use your black skin to wipe their floors and throw you away like dirty rags." Kwame's mother emerged from the shadows, her wrapper rustling like dry leaves. Her hands trembled as she pressed the jute bag against his chest. Inside, Kwame could feel the careful folds of his two good shirts, the photograph of their village church, where the roof leaked during rainy season, and the dried piece of bitter kola, their people's ancient remedy for life's bitterness. "For when your heart grows weak," she whispered, her breath warm and sour with unshed tears. The calluses on her fingers caught on his shirt as she pulled him close, imprinting her touch into his skin like a brand. The journey began at dawn. As the rusty bus groaned away from the village, Kwame watched his mother grow smaller in the rear window, her wrapper a bright spot of color against the brown earth until the dust swallowed her whole. The Sahara was a revelation of cruelty. The smuggler's pickup truck broke down on the third day, its engine giving one final shudder before silence swallowed the desert. The Tuareg driver spat on the sand and announced, "Walk or die here," his gold tooth glinting like a predator's fang as he pocketed their remaining money. Kwame's tongue swelled in his mouth, a dry sponge sucking at his last drops of moisture. Beside him, Yusuf, whose jokes had kept them sane through the hellish truck ride, began weaving like a drunk man. His lips cracked open like overripe fruit, purple and weeping. "Tell my sister," he began, then collapsed face, first into the endless gold. The Libyan detention center smelled of despair and unwashed bodies. The guard's gold-capped tooth flashed as he dragged Kwame by his chains. "Your uncle sent nothing? Maybe we take kidney instead." The cellmates were living skeletons, their eyes burning with madness or fever. A Somali man with fingers like bird claws showed Kwame how to drink his own urine, the warm liquid burning like shame down his throat. When the ransom came, the guards laughed as they pushed him toward the shore. The gunshot that followed, Yusuf's body being disposed of, echoed in Kwame's bones long after the Mediterranean swallowed the sound. The rubber dinghy was a floating coffin. 40 souls pressed together, their sweat mixing with salt water. A Cameroonian woman's prayers rose above the waves, her pigeon words tumbling over themselves in terror. Then the puncture, a hiss like death laughing. The boat folded in on itself like a dying lung, swallowing people whole. Kwame woke vomiting seawater onto Italian pebbles. A Red Cross worker's flashlight beam cut through his darkness. "Sei vivo?" The question hung in the air. "Are you alive?" Kwame wasn't sure. The refugee camp showers ran cold, the water sluicing away Libya, but not its memory. Kwame scrubbed until his skin bled, but the stench of that cell lingered in his nostrils. Naples' tomato field stretched to the horizon, endless rows of plants sagging under the weight of fruit. Signorici's voice carried across the field. "No breaks, no complaints, or I call police." The euros he pressed into Kwame's palm at day's end were damp with sweat and guilt. The abandoned factory where the workers slept hosted nightly rat parades across thin mattresses. In dreams, Yusuf's corpse floated beside him, sea anemones blooming from his eye sockets like some grotesque bouquet. Elena entered his life like a knife, all sharp edges and dangerous glint. Her studio apartment smelled of damp ambition and the menthol cigarettes she smoked to stay thin. "You Africans have such stamina," she'd purr, her acrylic nails clicking against his wrist like a countdown to disaster. The wedding lasted 7 minutes. The judge yawned as Elena's grip on Kwame's hand turned vicious. "Now you're legal," she whispered, her breath hot against his ear. "But remember, I own you." That night, she took his paycheck with hands that had never known labor, locking it away for their future. Kemi arrived, screaming into the world 2 weeks early, her tiny fists clenched against the injustice of birth. Elena refused to breastfeed. "It ruins the tits," she declared, lighting another cigarette as Kwame warmed formula at 3 a.m., memorizing the way his daughter's lashes fanned against cheeks the color of caramelized sugar. The cafe window framed them perfectly, Elena's hand high on Luca's thigh, her laugh sharp enough to cut glass. When confronted, her slap left his ear ringing for hours. "At least he doesn't stink of poverty." The words hung in the air between them, ugly and final. Coming home from night shift to silence was his first warning. The empty closet yawned at him, the missing money box a gaping mouth of betrayal. Kemi's wails led him to the crib where she lay in a soiled onesie, Elena's note pinned to her blanket like some perverse gift tag. "She's your problem now." The Catholic shelter's bleach smell couldn't mask the despair. Kemi's cough rattled like stones in a tin can. "Papa," she wheezed, her tiny fingers clutching his beard like a lifeline. The wedding band he'd once thought symbolized love now bought her antibiotics. Sophie's hands were gentle as they wrapped Kemi in blankets from the hospital. "Your daughter has your eyes," she said, and something long frozen in Kwame's chest began to thaw. The courtroom smelled of wood polish and lies. Elena's fake fur coat shed fibers like she was molting, her lipstick a gash across her face. "He can't even speak proper Italian." Her voice screeched like nails on slate. The judge's eyebrows climbed as Kemi buried her face in Kwame's neck, her small arms squeezing tight. Sophie's testimony about the rat bites on Kemi's legs from Elena's neglect sealed the verdict. Rain drummed on the food truck's roof like a blessing. Kwame'S Nigerian kitchen smelled of home, nutty egusi, fiery pepper soup, jol of rice that made the old Italian man groan, "Mamma mia," around a mouthful. Sophie's laughter mingled with Kemi's as they danced to Wizkid, the golden beads in his daughter's braids chiming like tiny bells. Years later, the letter arrived like a ghost from a past life. The shaky handwriting barely resembled Elena's once bold script. Kwame held it over the jollof pot, watching flames lick at the paper until nothing remained but ashes floating like black snow. On Kemi's first day of school, her backpack nearly swallowed her whole. The golden beads in her braids caught the sunlight as she skipped ahead. "Papa, I told my teacher, we're princes in Nigeria." Her voice carried all the hope he'd carried across deserts and oceans. Kwame reached into his pocket, fingers finding the shriveled bitter kola his mother had given him so long ago. It had hardened to stone, its medicine now unnecessary. As Kemi's laughter floated back to him, he let the old remedy fall to the earth, planting it like a seed for new dreams.